You made it. Welcome back. Yeah, BEA, beautiful souls. Today's video is going to be another tier list for Honor, and I want to stress that Ubisoft might be coming up with a new balance change, especially for our boy Warden with his new feat changes, Lawbringer's Road Catcher, and perhaps even a rework for our boy Conqueror, or even Sohei, or Throwhei as most people like to call him. Remember, this is mostly going to be a solo to duo queue experience. If you're playing 4 stacking, some of the characters are going to change significantly, such as Nobushi should probably rise up to S tier, whereas in this tier list she might be a little bit lower, especially as a solo queue enjoyer like myself. But there are a few things we're going to go over, essentially because I'm going to explain why some characters are going to be carry characters and why some characters are just going to be crap or even in the balanced category, okay? When you're playing solo queue, you can't really expect your teammates to necessarily confirm. Sometimes you can help them confirm, and sometimes your goal is to stall and try to anti-gank for as long as possible while your teammates are 3v1ing on the other side of the point. And that's totally okay. You're stalling long enough, and that's all that really matters, right? And so this tier list is going to be my own opinion, what I've concluded is the best and worst characters to play as and play against, and also the most fun characters to play too. Remember, if you have fun playing a certain character, don't let anybody tell you otherwise, but just make sure that when you do play a certain character like Pirate and afeera and people start teabagging you, you got to realize that, you know, you kind of deserve it. Because I swear I win about 80 to 90% of my anti-ganks with this character specifically, and I get teabagged all the time for winning. And then if I do lose one of my anti-ganks, they will start teabagging you, and that's just how the pirate life is. Pirate mains unite, let's go. All of our 2-inchers, man. So anyways, so the duo queue experience is essentially going to be the same thing as solo queue. A lot of the times you're not going to be relying on your teammates, rotations, and all that good stuff, and so you want a character that can essentially do everything and keep yourself safe. Properties such as wide hitboxes, full blocks, hyper armor, crushing counters, dodge, cancel, recoveries, such as Sifu stance, hidden stance, 400 MS, mostly unreactable lights. Most people aren't reacting to this. The high level players will be, but these are essentially fairly safe to throw out. Dodge attacks, enhanced lights, roll catchers, clutch potential such as high damage punishes like Way of the Shark, wall splats, even deflects, ledges such as Warlord, feats, easy ganks, stalls, anti-ganks, minion clear, and essentially if there's 2 of the certain characters, which can be absolutely egregious to fight against, especially if you don't pick a very high tier character or a character that can deal or counter them. That is probably one of the most annoying things about For Honor, where you essentially have to accept your fate and just pull your pants down. Sometimes you just have to do that, and a game can be unwinnable depending on the hero pick and who your teammates pick. If there's two peacekeepers on your team, if they're not god tier reaction players, you're basically cooked. All right, that's just the truth, and that's something that you have to accept in the beginning of the game, or just go ahead and just rage quit and find a new match. You know, that's what people do mostly, and I understand why people do it. I totally understand. And so let's just go over. I have about 5,500, I think about 5,000 hours of For Honor, honestly. We're gonna go by faction, and Outlanders will be first. Afeera is gonna be a huge carry. She is essentially god tier duelist and god tier team fighter. So much clutch potential with all of her strong capabilities. She hasn't gotten changed that much, so if you want like a huge breakdown of the character, you definitely have to go check my other tier list, because there's only a few changes on a certain characters that have been adjusted, whereas relatively all the other cast hasn't been affected by it too much. All it does is, you know, kind of evens out the playing field as we nerf more characters from the top tier. The bottom tier or the mid tier characters will start become a lot stronger, and then the A tiers will start become the S tiers, but they're not going to be as annoying to fight against. And so afeera definitely is power creeping the rest of the cast by a pretty fair amount, if I do say so myself. And so with strong crushing counters, I mean huge hitboxes, a great full block on her tier 1, I mean her tier 3, insane feats for pins. I mean, she has an insane gank with her 50-50 mix on her somersault kick. Her raw heavies have huge hitboxes. Unblockable heavies also have huge hitboxes. The chain light attacks also have crushing counter properties. Essentially makes her really safe. Amazing roll catcher. And her stall anti-gank is top tier. She's one of the strongest characters to play and to brain rot, honestly. Brain rotting is fairly common with this character, and you can just essentially get away with it because you have a very strong 50-50 mix with the undodgeable finisher heavy, wall splatting on a heavy parry, or even light parry. You can get a ton of damage, more so than just the standard 27, 29, even finisher heavies that Kensei has 34 damage is not even comparable to a light parry on afeera. And so with two afeeras, it's absolutely egregious to fight against, and I just literally want to commit Sudoku when I play against her. So absolutely god tier mode. Don't even have to think about playing this character. Simply move on to the next character is going to be Pirate. Pirate is S tier, and they haven't nerfed Pirate quite yet, and the adjustments that I would personally do with Pirate is simply give her a shotgun, maybe the Doomstick. That would probably make it a little bit more balanced, in my opinion. All jokes aside, though, I mean, the forward heavy has hyper armor. She has hyper armor to chain heavy, and I think the strongest part about her kit is going to be her pistol blast. Pistol blast is gonna... It's basically what this does is that it gives you, if your teammates are playing with their monitor off and they turn it back on, you have plenty of time to delay your pistol blast so that they can land a heavy attack. And this is such an easy gank to perform too. A lot of people already know about the 100-0 ganks with Pirate. She's one of the best gankers in the game and one of the best team fighters, anti-gankers, stallers, everything. You know, this character has it all. She is a DLC character. You pay to win, essentially. And so with Pirate, you know, her opener by itself is nothing comparable to an afeera or even a character like Orochi, which did get nerfed recently. But with the forward heavy unblockable mix-up, most people, I would say 99% of the people playing in matchmaking, they are not reacting to this, they are making a read. If you fight people that are reacting to this, they're mostly playing in a 4-stack, and you're probably going to lose anyways. But Pirate in that situation should be in a team fight anyway. She shouldn't be dueling at the same time, whereas if you have a peacekeeper, send them off to duel, whereas Pirate can do her thing in team fights. And so with the undodgeable mix, the hyper armor, the pin on her finisher heavy, her walk the plank, absolutely ridiculous. She can also wall splat, go for another 20 damage or 22 damage total with the pistol blast, because there is damage reduction on the pistol blast when you do wall splat. But with her feet setup, she can lower attack, she can go ahead and she lowers defense on her pistol blast, on her pistol tier 1, her tier 2 with thrilling comeback, absolutely insane. I think this is a huge buffer because this helps out her god mode build with Aegis, with getting a bunch of shields, with Indomitable, and also if you go for the setup with the perks, which can be an unkillable Pirate, and if she does get revenge with thrilling comeback, she can get that feat again, and it's absolutely egregious deal with. You literally want to blow your brains out when you don't have a full block character like Kyoshin or even Black Prior. Kyoshin's probably easier to utilize due to just being able to hold full block, whereas Black Prior, you kind of have to time it depending on her dodge attack, and even though her dodge attack is huge hitboxes, you know, if you're focused and you can dodge 500 or 600 MS bashes with Pirate, you're literally going to stall for days. It's one of the easiest things to do. And so with a great roll catcher, good team fight capabilities, I mean, you guys have seen Pirates. Pirates hated for reasons because she's so easy to play, so brain dead, but she's so strong. She's so strong. So I hate when people downplay this character. She definitely needs some nerfs when it comes to the dodging around like a Beyblade. People say it's so fun playing Beyblade Simulator, but it's also not fun playing against her, especially if you don't have the team comp for her. And so I think one nerf for Pirate should be that she can't dodge cancel she can't dodge cancel after the dodge attack, or she loses the enhanced properties like Orochi and Berzerker. I'm surprised she hasn't gotten those nerfs quite yet. And so moving on to the next tier here, I'm pretty sure I'm going to put Medjay in A tier. Now this character, I think a lot of people gravitate towards him, and also they dislike him simply due to the fact that he does technically have an infinite chain. Granted, the infinite chain is only 500 MS lights that go into his mix, or a nomad swing, which is enhanced 500 MS if you don't parry that, and if you make a wrong read, he can throw out a heavy instead, and it does have hyper armor, which is nice. So this is why Medjay can be fairly unpredictable, especially when you target swap and change your weapons, because the trajectories can be fairly large, which is a good thing. So Medjay has quite a few mix-ups in there within his dual axe stance, undodgeable, 500 MS chain bash, really good recoveries as well. And going into his staff form, gank is ridiculously strong. Compare this compatible with the shugoki hug and nobushi undodgeable finisher heavy. These ones are probably one of the most egregious ganks to deal with. You basically have to just sit there and take it. I've got tons of compilations of just this gang. Medjay, Nobushi, Shugoki, absolutely unstoppable. So it's not fun to play against at all, but it is fun to utilize. And so Medjay still retains really strong ganking prowess. In team fights, he's not really super duper strong comparative to like maybe a berzerker even, or Varangian of course. But he still holds some utility on landing really good and strong heavy finishers, or just some interrupting tools with the hyper armor and the fast form as light attacks and undodgeables. It really depends on the situation at hand, but this character, totally underrated, definitely something that you have to kind of focus and learn the character before you can kind of like counter him, because I know a lot of people don't understand what's going on with the character because they never played him, but once you start picking him up, you realize that the only threat that he has is that nomad swing, and after that he's fairly a balanced character and pretty underrated in my opinion. A lot weaker than people think he is, but except for like the chain form as light attacks within his dual axe form, that's the only strength he really has. But other than that, you know, nothing super egregious besides the fact that his feats are pretty freaking insane. I mean, the feats on this character is tier 4 nomad astral projection, deals 70 damage, 77 damage with your buff on your tier 2. So I mean, nomad swing and the ability to bloodborne everything is just one of the coolest characters in my opinion. So definitely give him a try and you'll realize why people hate him so much. And it's simply because a lot of people don't like infinite chain characters. Infinite chain characters can be fairly brain dead to people who aren't focused. If you're focused against medjay, it shouldn't be too bad of a battle in my opinion, but that's because I also play the character. And so moving on to ocelotl. Ocelotl did get some serious nerfs that were well deserved. He did get some big nerfs on his chain bash, and so after the chain bash whiffs, he can't go into a form as light attacks anymore. So this was Warden's bane, okay? This was Warden's counter right here. This character countered Warden. Even if you're a reaction god, you had to focus on that form as light attack if you dodged the bash. You had to be like on the tip of your toes. But now, for the average enjoyer like myself, average Warden enjoyer, you can essentially do very well against ocelotl. Now he's a lot more fair. Is he still strong? Yes, 100%. He's still your carry character, and essentially, he's got all the tools you need. Great forward dodge light for roll catching, great neutral bash. Chain bash is still feignable, so you got plenty of tools. It deals direct damage, so you can go into your chain mix up right out of the way. His chain heavy attacks are also 700 MS really fast. And then he has the ability to use the unblockable. He has the ability to go into his hunter stance, which can negate some form of offense, such as the fully charged bash makes up you dodge for the level 1, and then you use the hunter stance to dodge level 3. Pretty cool, but you don't really get anything out of it necessarily. So it's not the biggest thing. It's just kind of cool to do. So some skill expression there, which is nice. But essentially, he still remains relatively the same. The tier 1 still ridiculously good. You can go into time and space and go ahead and back cap, so your team has to be focused and watching out for the ocelotl. Is simply too good to be left unchecked. And so with this character, you're just a ninja. You're essentially a ninja, and you can do whatever you want, especially if your teammates and the enemies can't react to form as light attacks. You can essentially spam this as much as you want and just have a ton of chain pressure. This still has tons of chain pressure, even though he lost the ability to go into a form as light attack or heavy attack and hyper armor zone after a missed bash. So not the end of the world, just makes him a little bit more balanced, and that's a good thing. And moving on to the Vikings, that is the Outlanders right there. I'd say a pretty strong group of, heroes right here, man. Pretty good strong characters on the DLC characters. But we're moving on to Varangard. That's going to be your character right there. Probably, I would say arguably the best character in the game. The best character in the game. She's essentially, Varangard is essentially afeera, but has the option to stop a meta. She was made to stop a meta, which was the heavy target swap to anywhere else besides the enemy that you're targeting. But you want to hit that character. But this character will stop everything and nullify everything. And she doesn't have to commit to the full block. She can essentially use her light attacks for crushing counter properties. And also, let's just give her finisher lights that are also crushing counters. So not much has changed for Varangian. She did get nerfed, but the only nerf she got was her light attacks. Her chain link timings on it got a little bit slower, so she can't just spam you with it. Beforehand, you could do it like instantly and it would catch you dodging, but now it's not going to catch you as often, and it's going to be a little bit easier to parry, and the animation is going to be a lot easier to focus on because it's not going to come out instantly. And so this is a pretty good nerf. Otherwise, this character is fairly the same. It literally counters every single character in the game. I think the only character that does well against her, maybe, I don't know, is like maybe Highlander, because you can essentially time those unblockables to hit her really good, or anybody with an unblockable mix, like maybe Black Prior, that can flip all of her movesets and go into an unblockable instantly to hit her in her full guard. So someone that has instant unblockables will do pretty well against a Varangian if you're timing it correctly, but they also have to have very good defensive measures. Like, you would say that unblockables for the zone on Raider would be good, but he doesn't have good defensive utility if she does get into her mix in team fights. You're essentially screwed, because if you do a dodge attack, you're probably going to get out-rotationed, is that a word? Out-rotated, and if you dodge attack into her, she's going to full block even after whiffed unblockable, because she has one of the best hitboxes in the game. I think even better than Jiang in my honest opinion. And so this character is fairly the same. You can heal on your tier 1, you can get a defense buff on your tier 2, stalwart banner, doom banner on tier 4, and tier 3 gives you more damage. I mean, this character literally has it all. I don't have to say much about it. She's one of the most popular characters for a reason, because I don't blame you guys for not wanting to deal with external spam. You know, I honestly don't. It feels unfair sometimes, because you get stuck trying to parry something that's not targeted towards you, and you can't tell if something is necessarily targeted towards you because the animations are very subtle, so you have to really pay attention. And so this character just stops all that bullshit, and I get why people want to play her, you know? I get why people want to play her, but keep in mind, people also hate this character because she actually is unfair. 100% of the games in a competitive play, nobody wanted to play against her. She was banned 100% of the time, so it says that even the comp players don't want to play against her. They don't even want to play against her. They don't want the opportunity for someone to pick this character because it's AIDS, actual AIDS. Okay, moving on here to the Viking class. Now, of course, here's the thing. Last patch, Shaman did get an insane buff, and I'm glad I kind of waited, because I doubt this was going to actually stay in the game, but she was able to go into her bash mix-up within 100 ms, 100 to 500 ms, and that's a huge buff because she was able to get a bite on a heavy parry, and she was able to get a wall splat on a heavy parry. So this really gave her some really cool wall splat potential, and it made it so that her bites would be so oppressive if you were bleeding. So a heavy parry makes her incredibly strong. And the crazy thing is that Shaman, she's like a pretty solid duelist, especially for the casual community, even for myself. Like this, now her soft feints are reactable, but you have to be really on the tip of your toes. I'd say like 80% of the time you can block this if you're hyper focused. Maybe 70% of the time. I'm gonna be generous. Maybe 70% of the time. Because the animation and the indicators just block on indicators. But if you're like me, who's playing this drunk as hell, and you don't want to deal with any of this nonsense, you know, you want to be under some sort of substance, because sometimes this game can be absolutely egregious. Like, you live for the anti-gank moments, and you live for the insane reads and deflects and full blocks. But this game can just throw a curveball at you, and there's just nothing you can do sometimes. And so with Shaman, her 1v1 potential is absolutely insane. Cracked against, you know, the casual player, but not like super top tier against a really high level sweat, a stack essentially. You're basically screwed if you pick Shaman. Like, she is probably one of the worst characters you could pick against a stack. But in solo queue, she does really, really well. And a lot of people hate her for that specific reason, because her bite does a lot of damage, she gets healed, and she has really good 1v1 potential. Her team fights are absolutely ass though, so I would not recommend using her against a really team comp heavy team. But she's going to be in crap tier now, because beforehand you were able to get a bite, you get a wall splat. I would have put her essentially in maybe in the A- tier category with that buff. But they hotfixed it, and now you can't get a bite or a bash after heavy parry. So she's back to crap tier. Now they removed all of her 1v1 potential, and gave her, you know, she's more like a skill-based character, essentially, especially in Dominion. In 1v1s, she's probably a lot easier to play. I'd probably rank her up in like A tier for 1v1s. But this is Dominion, the mode that has a lot more variables to throw at you. So she's gonna be crap tier. It doesn't matter her feats, stealth, nail bomb, thick skin, which is what I run. Doesn't matter. You have to kill your teammates fast. You have to kill the enemies fast, and you have to get someone solo really quickly and finish them off. If you don't do that, you're essentially screwed because her anti-ganks, her stalling is very mid. Really bad. Okay, moving on here to Jormangundr. Jormangundr, my opponent right in the A-. You're a really underrated character, and this character, I feel like a lot of people play this character because he's I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a Yorm main, and he's fairly brain rot. You can kind of no brain this character and win a lot of your games, and simply do because his neutral hyper armor, he has an infinite chain, so if you're not pairing his attacks, he's gonna keep continuing to attack you, and that's why a lot of people like him. That's why a lot of people like infinite chain characters like the medjay, Jormangundr, hitokiri, right? His berzerker. They love those characters, Raider, because they're infinite chains, and so Jormangundr, if you're not pairing those finisher heavies, you're going to eat a ton of damage with your wall splat potential, because Jormangundr's clutch is getting that wall splat potential. You know, 500 MS light attacks, all enhanced, mind you, so if you're not pairing that, he goes into his chain, makes up his 50-50 bash, really good for pins, gives shields on his tier 2, gives health on tier 1, tier 3 does a wall splat hammer attack, heal 25 damage, lose all your stamina, go for forward heavy, go into your chain, makes up. I mean, Jormangundr's really got it all, except for the fact that he can't really deal with the top tiers as well as other characters. Like, Jormangundr is kind of rough against all these characters up here that will be potentially up there because he can't catch them. His hitboxes aren't the greatest compared to those characters up there, so he will suffer. But against like everyone that's more balanced from the A tiers to the bottom tiers, she or he will do fine. I picked the female variant because the male variant sounds like he's getting it up the butt and he's getting oiled up. So he's getting I can't listen to it, honestly. I don't know how you guys could. Those male Jormangundr enjoyers, I have no idea how you do it. So Jormangundr, absolutely underrated character, super duper strong character. I mean, honestly, if you have the reactions for it, I would probably put him up in the A tiers, but if you're like a casual solo enjoyer, I think this character can carry you really easily. Honestly, I might even put up in A tier, but I'm gonna put him in the A- tiers, just so that you guys can realize that he also is fairly predictable, and his lights are fairly easy to parry still. So if you're being really predictable, she's not going to be as strong. But if you're decent at the character, have a decent reads and mind games, you should be carrying with her. Now, moving on to Raider. Raider's also going to be an A- tier character. You know, just throwing heavies, hyper armor, stampede charge is your clutch potential. Great for ledging, great for setting up ganks. Because you get the pin effect where you don't get any damage reduction from your teammates' heavy attacks. So really strong, great hitboxes. Overall, 3 chain hits, tireless, mark for death, inspire, second wind, battle cry, absolutely underrated feat, and fire flask as well. And I mean, Raider is just an OG character. What he has works, even in a 1v1 potential. What he has works, but compared to all these S tiers and even the A+ tiers, I mean, he's gonna struggle a little bit. You know, he doesn't have strong defensive measures. What he has is good or decent team fighting and 1v1 measures, but the astronomical plays that Pirate can do with their dodge cancels, afeera with their crushing counters, Varangian with their full block, just doesn't measure up to Raider. And so Raider definitely needs some adjustments just to boost him up a little bit, because he's fairly balanced compared to the rest of the characters. You'll play him and you'll realize that there's some weaknesses you can exploit on Raider, but he also has some really good strengths too. And so Raider, I think he needs some buffs. I would love to see some love with them in the future. Now, Warlord is kind of in the same spot fairly. You know, I think actually Warlord is stronger than Raider in my opinion. He can actually out-trade Raider, and he has more ledging potential with the guard break spam, and he also has a full block, so you can utilize that really well in team fights and 1v1s. With the crushing counters on the neutral lights and the full blocks, I mean, Warlord does have a very solid kit. What he has works. Great hyper armor. He has a more hyper armor than Raider. That's why I say he can out-trade him, because you can just throw that top heavy and land that finisher heavy. And then Raider sometimes can't even get that chain heavy finisher, so he has to make a read and go for a guard break, and that can be fairly risky as well. And so Warlord has the edge on that in my opinion. He also has a better opener with the bash. But yeah, there's not much to say about Warlord. Fairly simple. He hasn't got any changes yet. Really underrated character. One of my favorite characters to play, honestly. He's also fairly brain rot because you can just kind of throw heavies. A lot of people will try to parry your light attacks, so you can let raw heavies fly. because you have so much frame advantage with those light attacks and those heavies, delayable heavies too. Super satisfying to let rip. But with the ledging potential on so many maps and the wall splats that deal stamina damage, he is not to be trifled with, in my opinion. So Valkyrie here is going to be an A tier character. Valkyrie, you know, fairly, I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to play her as well, but she is really, really strong. Great for team fights, great for duels. I'd say she does have some bad matches. I have a really bad matchup, Valkyrie versus Gladiator, because it is going to be more of a defensive play. Because if you're not reacting that 4MS a bash from Gladiator, you're going to get toe stab a lot. Heavy into bash is not going to do well against a Gladiator toe stab. Gladiator has a lot of good defensive measures against Valkyrie, and a lot of other characters do too. But what you want to do with Valkyrie is you want to stay in your full block and wait for opportunities for early dodges and see what your opponent will react to, because her bash is unreactable. Really cool deflect too. Go for bleed or guard break, and her sweep is ridiculously good too. 500 MS, and you can't guard break her afterwards. Good crushing counters. An amazing roll catcher. She has bloodlust. She has Bounty Hunter, she has Juggernaut, and Juggernaut did get nerfed quite significantly, but she has Javelin, she has Fire Flask, and Scout, so this character is not to be tried for. A lot of people don't play her though, because she's not as, you have to kind of like main her to do really, really well with her. If you just pick her straight up, you're not going to do that great with her, because she only has Chain of Fire MS light attacks. Her hitboxes and her heavies aren't as amazing as you would think, even though, you know, that's kind of the mix-up. You're supposed to kind of take it, but you can just kind of let raw heavies fly if you start getting really scared of Valkyrie's full block. So character is definitely underrated, super duper good still. I would not underestimate her at all. Moving on to Highlander here, definitely S tier character. I mean, I've talked about him time and time again. Really insane ganks, great 1v1 potential. You can get spammed down by just 4 MS light attacks, defensive lights. Yeah, you can't light check him. He has so much frames. Insane in team fights once you start utilizing the offensive stance dodge attack. Huge hitboxes. You can't even tell where it's coming from, honestly. This character is egregious. I just want to like throw bleach in my eyes sometimes when I fight him, especially if you're not using a character that's good defensive measures on dodgeable pressure against Highlander, because you have to kind of be focused against him. If you're not parrying those 4MS light attacks or dodging to get out of the way, you're into his chain pressure. His chain pressure is so scary. The neutral pressure is not that scary, but he can feint his heavy attacks, go into offensive stance instantly, and then start bombarding you with 4MS light attacks. And by that point, if you've eaten 1 or 2 already, that's already like a heavy attack. So you have to respect like so much things he has to do. In team fights, he is also fairly scary too, because he can let those unblockable heavies fly. They actually have a huge amount of phantom range, so you have to respect that. Kick is feintable. Kick to caber is also a decent roll catcher now. So Highlander just has a lot going for him with crushing counters, and Spear Storm did get nerfed when it comes to the damage, but it still does a crap ton of damage, honestly. It still does a crap ton of damage. And with the ganks on caber toss, ugh, just absolutely disgusting, man. Absolutely disgusting. You can't do anything when you're getting ganked by Highlander. I think it's one of the scariest characters to go up against in a 1v2 setting, because if you mess up just for just a little bit and the Highlander knows it, he's going to go for that instant caber toss. The forward dodge caber toss is so fast, and you are screwed because there's no damage reduction because you're pinned. So you're going to take full damage, and then he's going to wait again, or the other teammate can just confirm for the caber toss. So if you know the gank, you know it, but if you don't, thank God, because that's going to be so disgusting to deal with. It's Berzerker, I'm going to put him in A tier. Still the same character, you know, he can't just target swap dodge attack anymore and go to his chain pressure, but he can still target swap away from you and go to his chain pressure, or target swap and dodge attack again to rotate out of the situation, try to get into a better situation, rotation around the map or around the team fight. And so Zerker's still the same, still no brain, still brain rotty. You can just throw heavies, and if you're not reacting, if you're not paying attention, and if you're playing this high or drunk, some people play a high. Some people play For Honor better high, but a lot of people don't, and they just want to relax. If you're not paying attention to these 4MS light attacks, these are reactable, but you have to be on the tip of your toes. You have to be ready. You know, you got to be paying attention. If I'm streaming, I'll be sort of paying attention, but also be reading chat or trying to think of, you know, trying to have personality, unfortunately. But we're For Honor players. Who are we kidding? We don't have personalities. We also don't have women. But Berzerker, scary character, even with the nerfs that he's gotten. I mean, can you parry the 4MS chain of light attacks that are delayable? He throws a, oh, can you differentiate that between a heavy attack? Can you? all the time? No, you cannot. And so that's why he's going to be very good still, even with the nerfs, A tier character. And the throwing axe, incredibly fast, cooldown 120, I believe, or maybe even, I think it's 90. Super fast, and it's unreactable. It's 300 MS indicators. Like, good luck freaking dodging that. And so Berserker, still top tier character, good for team fights, good for duels, good all around. Lawbringer is not here. Oh wait, am I done with the Viking? Holy smokes. Okay, moving on to Lawbringer. Now, Lawbringer got a huge buff, man. This character, absolutely disgusting. Now, praise holy Sigmar. Like, what the Sigmar is going on here? Ubisoft actually giving good buffs. So, basically, Lawbringer has the side dodge buff like Shugoki's, where you can just spam this in team fights to keep yourself safe, okay? KYS, boys, KYS to all the pirate and shinobi mains out there, and Brangian mains. God bless you guys. God bless your heart. So, Lawbringer is now going to be safe in team fights when he, acts defensively, and that's a good thing. So, a lot of the characters have really safe utility. All the S tiers and A tiers, they have good dodge attacks that give them iframes. Valkyrie has good iframes, even Warlord has good iframes. These characters all up here have amazing iframes that transition them to a different time and space. It turns them into a different person when they dodge attack, and they dodge attack all the way to freaking Africa. Medjay especially. So Lawbringer now has a really good bash. You have iframes, you can evade mix-ups, you can option select, you can keep them guessing now. Beforehand, you'd have to essentially respect their mix-up, and you couldn't really do much in team fights. But now you can just dodge bash and be safe. And you can also decide to opt out for the light attack, target swap that, or just target swap the heavy attack, which is hyper armor, to help you in team fights. So he's much stronger in team fights, insanely good in 1v1 now with the chain bash. 5 MS bash coming after a light attack. You can also try to stop people from dodging if just by using the top light, which will catch people who dodge early, because it's 400 MS, mind you. A chain 4 MS light attack, I think they're probably going to nerf that on the character, maybe potentially one day, because they removed all chain 4 MS light attacks from characters that had very strong chain pressure or chain mix-ups with the light and heavy follow-ups. Because if you look at Valkyrie and Orochi, they removed all of the 4 MS light attacks and the 3 chain hits, and so they keep the 3 chain hits like Raider, but Raider doesn't have like super strong offense comparative to like Valkyrie and Orochi, and Valkyrie lost her chain 4 MS light attack on the top, whereas Lawbringer kept his. So it's a little bit counteractive and not following their philosophy when it comes to balance, but that's okay. Maybe they just forgot about it. Ubisoft always be doing that stuff. And so Lawbringer is super duper strong, man. The chain bash is so good, deals 13 damage when you get that follow-up light attack, and a lot of people aren't gonna be able to differentiate the bash itself, especially when you're in heavy mix-up to get into his unblockable mix. You're not gonna be able to differentiate that. Super freaking strong. You have to dodge on read or take the bash. And most people are going to take the bash because that heavy finisher does a lot of damage, and of course still goes into his mix-up and his bash for continuous pressure. So one of the scariest characters in the game, and thank God, because he definitely deserved this buff. He's going to be getting a roll catcher, and when he does get a roll catcher, I honestly might keep him in A tier still. Like, he's an okay team fighter. He's a really good duelist with the enhanced light as well. But I don't know if he's going to be a carry character quite yet, because there's a lot of players that do play Lawbringer and they don't use him to the full potential. Whereas characters that, like people who play like Varangian, Ocelotl Pirate, and afeera, they have a lower skill floor, and so they can do a lot more. Whereas Lawbringer, you still kind of have to parry a little bit and make a decent read in team fights. But I think that remains to be seen. I think once people start learning how to play Lawbringer a little bit better, I think Lawbringer might actually become S tier. But I'd say he's like a pretty strong A tier at the moment. So Lawbringer, scary character, bomb bringer, great staller, amazing anti-ganker now, especially if he does get that buff for the roll catcher. He's going to be an amazing anti-gear, but he's a great staller, great anchor. Now, Conqueror, absolutely trash tier. They're going to rework him eventually. You guys have heard me talk about my boy Conqueror. Unblockable heavies just don't cut it, especially with 22 damage chain finishers. It just doesn't make sense. Hopefully they adjust that in the future. Now, Conqueror did get a pretty substantial buff, just like Lawbringer, with insane iframes on the dodge bash. Now, this is great for defensive capabilities for Conqueror, where he can anchor a point and remain relatively safe in some team fights, since he does have an AoE light attack on his bash, and he also has the option to go into his heavy input as well, which is more single target. But keep in mind you can't clip yourself, and also keep in mind that you can get flipped from Black Prior if you do not be careful on which one you choose. And so this is a pretty big buff for him. However, there's still so many issues with Conqueror himself or herself, and I don't really recommend playing him if you want to be like a super optimal hyper carry character. He's still gonna suffer against finishing people off, and especially with the low damage values, he kind of is just a joke. His forward bash is pretty good. I mean, he has okay recoveries because he can full block after pretty much everything. Forward dodge bash, side dodge bash into full block, especially if they dodge late and they try to punish you. You can full block right afterwards. And there's a lot of fun things you can do with the full block, but it also doesn't work on some of the casts who have enhanced properties, Nobushi zone, Orochi zone, all that good stuff. And even Centurion zone, you can feint that and parry the follow-up on Conqueror, so it just doesn't work. This character doesn't work. This character is okay in matchmaking. Like, honestly, I'd put him like an A- tier. He's actually an okay character. He's an anchor. He can be tough to kill, especially with bash and eventual bury, but he just doesn't have enough finishing power to warrant, you know, somebody picking him up and be like, okay, this character is actually amazing. You do have to be really good with them at a high level to deal with all the bullshit up here, but this character I would not recommend to play because you're gonna rip your hair out and just mauled for days. So he's gonna get a rework soon, but nothing crazy at this moment in time. So Conqueror is going to stay at B tier. This character really needs help. He only has 500 MS light attack. He still has that 900 MS chain light attack from the same side. They haven't removed that. The unblockables are okay hitboxes, but the damage is just so lackluster, doesn't matter. He does have a chain bash that is feintable, which is nice, and it is underreactable, but the damage output for it and the stamina that you use for it is just not worth it. It really isn't. Uninterruptible is a great tier 4 though, and of course Pugna Morrison is tier 3. Shield Basher is just my go-to. And then tier 1, there's just no point. I mean, you might as well just use Speedy Revive, honestly. Now, Gladiator is a little bit more trickier. This character excels on one thing, is ganking, especially, and is not that great in team fights. But he has really good safe utility when it comes to trying to not anti-gank, but like stall, because you're not going to be really anti-gank that much with this character because he doesn't really have that much finishing power, exactly like Conqueror, where if you land a skewer, if you manage to not get interrupted, which is super rare for me personally, you can get some nice damage by doing a double heavy when you throw them to the side, which is great. But the toe stab against any good player, you're gonna miss those. They're only 600 MS. I guess the casual, lobbies, I'd say like 80% of the time they're gonna get hit by the 600 MS toe stab. You can delay it too, of course, after heavy. I don't usually go into a skewer mix-up. I usually just delay it. Guard break for the empty dodge and all that good stuff, and then mix them up. Also, really great thing about the toe stab is that it resets everything to neutral, and it also pushes you away from them. So they do forward dodge bash. It's an easy guard break or another toe stab. So GG's to you. So Gladiator can be frustrating to play against, especially if you are not reacting. If you're not going to be a react target, you're not sweating off. Not everyone's going to be sweating in this game, but there are some people that do. But when you fight against people who aren't sweating, you're gonna tilt them. This character is fairly tilting. I'm not gonna lie to you. Honestly, a really good duelist when you have good defensive plays, and the offense for this character is actually very scary too, because the threat of the skewer, it does like 37 damage. It's ridiculously OP. And it definitely needs a nerf, in my honest opinion, especially when they go ahead and buff him and let his deflex actually break through hyper armor. Thank God. Sucker Punch is insane though, really good for going ahead and stalling and ledging people. So this character, I don't really have any bad things to say about it. Strictly just a duelist and a ganker, not really a team fighter. But you can do some gnarly stuff with the double deflex, because you can dodge out of the skewer, and the trident is really good. You can also run his I forgot what it's called. The tier 3 that throws and traps them. Nobody really run. Actually, some people do run that, but the animation is so slow that you can dodge that. Even for someone like myself, you can dodge that super easily just on reactions. It's ridiculously bad, but you can get some pretty nice damage off it. So moving on to Centurion here. Centurion, I'm gonna put up an A tier. This character is absolutely freaking goated right now with the buff that they gave him. He's basically uninterruptible on pretty much all of his chain bash mix-ups. Ridiculously good, man. This character is ridiculous. He's one of the most prevalent characters right now. You'll see him in almost every single match, even more so than up in the carry tiers here. This character is a fan favorite, and we all know why. Incredibily's all over my inner Mikus, and this character is super fun, amazing fashion, really good charged heavies that can track people when they even external dodge away from you, which is crazy. Easy gank setups with hyper armor, variable timed heavy attacks. Man, you're not pairing these if Centurion is good. If Centurion is good, you're not going to be pairing any of these heavies like 90% of the time, and so a lot of people aren't going to expect his chain light attacks too, because they're going to try to anticipate and dodge the chain bash, because I also get by those chain lights too from time to time. And really good parry punishes. Wall punishes are ridiculous, 22 damage for a heavy parry, even more so on a freaking wall splat. It's like 40 damage, ridiculously good. Centurion is one of the best characters out there right now with the 1v1 potential. His team fights actually aren't too bad either, but his ganking is where he is strongest. And this character is played the most right now. So I would suggest you guys learn how to play him, because he's one of the most popular characters out there. And so Pugyo, Gyat Pugyo is super good. They did nerf it a while back ago, but the damage wasn't the problem. It was that it revenge lock, so they can't pop revenge, so you get a free charged heavy, and your teammates also get a freaking heavy too. So one of the strongest tier 3s in the game. Actually, it might be the strongest tier 3, next to Lombo, of course. So easily confirmable and all that good stuff. So Centurion, thank God, he is good now. Bless the Omnisaya for my Blues Ultra Space Marine. Moving on to Black Prior. Black Prior is going to go up in the S tiers. Super easy to play. Pretty much counters every single character on paper. So once you get good with them, you can get some amazing flips. Just like screw up all of the mind games or all the brain dead players out there. Because I have been brain deading myself, brain rotting all the time. I've been playing a lot of Pirate, unfortunately. Yes, I know. I've played a lot of Pirate. I've just been like throwing stuff, and Black Priors have been flipping me for days because I turn off my brain. So if you're fighting players who have turned off their brain, Black Prior is your carry character. You just go onto a point, stall for days, have your teammates farm mid lane and the other point hold it. You'll just win in your games every single time. Black Prior is literally your carry character, hands down. Probably the best knight character in the game, in my opinion. And so Black Prior just carries with crushing counters, the flip. The zone also 600 MS, and a lot of people aren't going to be dodging those consistently, and they also do stamina drain. He's one of the characters that still have stamina drain, which is crazy, so it makes him busted in that regard. So you can't underestimate that at all. The forward heavy, the dodge attack, and the chain bash into undodgeable mix. I mean, he's got it all. He's really got it all. I think you have to kind of learn how the character plays, but he's fairly easy and he's fairly free. Gryphon, however, I'm going to move up to the A tiers. Gryphon is also very strong. Honestly, I kind of want to put him in the carry tier list as well, but I'm going to keep him down in the A tiers because he still is a little bit harder to play because he's more, I feel like he's also more telegraphed because you kind of want to be throwing light attacks and the forward dodge lights and the forward bash as much as possible, but he does have an insane range, a pretty decent solid mix-up as well with the chain kick and the undodgeable lights, and the finisher heavies have really good hitboxes too. He's a very close, very close carry character, but I feel like Black Prior just has the edge because of that full block. You know, the maneuverability of this character is pretty solid too because his dodge attack goes super duper far, but you know, comparative to Highlander that can go in defensive stance right afterwards, I think it's has a lot more utility than Gryphon's just going into a finisher heavy that is much slower and can be negated by Varangian or just dodge canceled by Pirate and crushing countered by Afeera. So all these characters kind of just stop him from being top tier, but he's also freaking ridiculously good and probably used in those team comps as well. And so with the healing aspects of all of his feats, it makes him just insane for utility and support because you will get this so fast if you have your tier 4 rapid refresh. It's actually ridiculous. You get it all the time. There's just tons of games where you're just healing all the dang time, and the Gryphon is absolutely busted in that way. Healing is incredibly strong with them. So if you have a Gryphon on your team or two of them, it might be Gojo over for the other team, honestly. Just 2 Gryphons is super freaking strong. Now moving on to Warden. Now Warden is still tricky, even with his rework. Honestly, I want to put him in like the A- tiers. If you're duo queuing, like solo queuing, this character, he is good, but he is not going to be like super freaking top tier. He's insane in 1v1s, probably one of the best 1v1ers in the game is if you have the reactions for it and if you have really good reads. In a team comp where you have a 4-stack of good players and good heroes, honestly, I would put him up in the A tiers because he has great hitboxes, good damage values, good clear, strong 1v1 potential. So he would be up there, but when it comes to solo queue and duo queue, you can't rely on your teammates all the time. You want to rely on strong defensive measures like good dodge attacks, good dodge bashes, and Warden does not have any of those. What he relies and where his strengths lie strictly is that shoulder bash mix-up and the unblockable heavy attack, but that's kind of what every other character has too. And so when you don't have a good dodge attack, such as the A tiers up here, you're kind of screwed when it comes to, you know, defending against 1v2 situations. When you like, what are you gonna do in a 1v2 against a Varangian, ocelotl, pirate, afeera? You know, these characters, all of them up here. There's nothing you can do. You have to take the mix. You have to respect the mix, and that's why I don't put Warden all the way up in the S or the A tiers, because he requires some effort to play. He's not just a free character like all these guys up here. And Warden, you know, still a Giga Chad character. All my homies out here love Warden. I myself love Warden. I love picking him. I love picking my Lothric Night Warden, my Crimson Red Blood of Mars Warden as well. But you just can't rely on him. If you're no-braining, if you don't have the reactions for it, you just want to relax on a casual day, he's not the character for you. Now moving on to Peacekeeper, I'm going to put her in the A- tiers as well. Same thing for Warden. These characters got very good buffs, very good reworks. Peacekeeper has really good recoveries and saw faint movement now after her buffs, but if you do not have good 1v1 potential, you don't have good reads, you don't have good reactions, she is going to be much harder to use, okay? You have to get those parries, you have to fish out those light interrupts, those deflects, you have to fish them out. If you do not, this character is not it, because you're not going to kill him fast enough, and you're going to get ganked. And the stalling potential of this character can be good with the good hitboxes that she has on her zone. Her decent recoveries now are pretty solid, and going into a finisher heavy when you land your forward heavy or your dodge attack can be very helpful. But those things can just keep you alive for a little bit, but if you're getting ganked against some of these top tiers up here, I don't think you're going to survive by yourself, because she doesn't have the finishing potential. The bleed itself is not going to finish them off. Your only opener is going to heavy into your bleed and then dodge cancel out of the way, or forward dodge, tower swap, anything. But you don't have enough finishing power, and so that's why this character is going to be a little bit lower. You have to essentially respect and make a read and have amazing reaction against all of these characters up here to deal with them. If you can finish someone off in 1v1 on a point or off a point, that's your job. You're doing a great job with Peacekeeper. That's what you should be doing. If you can beat them in 1v1s, that's perfect. You're doing your job as Peacekeeper, and she is going to rise up, honestly, to the A tiers. But if you don't excel at that, and you don't excel at knowing how to peel and how to fight in team fights, she's going to be A- or even B tier, okay? If you know how to do all those things, though, she's going to be a solid A tier character, very high up there, and can work in like pretty much every team comp, okay? That's the point of this character, though. She's a high skill curve and very high skill floor. Moving on to Warmonger. Warmonger is going to go right up there in the A tiers. Strong character with the recent bash changes to her as well. She can also do a bash after heavy parry, so you can go for a bleed mix-up and then go into your light. Although if you could, the most optimal one is go into light into bash mix-up, but sometimes I like go for a bleed into light because it gives them a little bit more pressure because they're bleeding. They will try to parry my heavies a little bit more. You can go for heavy into GB. And so the forward dodge, heavy being undodgeable, absolutely insane. I mean, this character I talk about all the time. She's one of the most played characters in the game as well, and there's a reason for that. It's because she's super strong, easy to play, and enhanced light attacks, good hitbox on her heavy attacks, great dodge attack on her iframes. She's basically slightly the better Warden when it comes to solo queue gaming and team fights. Now this character is super freaking good with her feats, corruption, stops people from team fighting. You can go ahead and gank, and Arrow Strike is 45 damage on tier 2, so what more can I say? Warmonger is literally the queen of For Honor, one of my favorite characters out there. Actually, I think she is my favorite character right now, if we are being honest right now. If we're being honest right now, Warmonger is probably my favorite character, right? Meow. Gutsmonger, let us go, boys. Let us freaking cook. And that's pretty much it for the Knight faction here. Moving on to let's move on to Sohei, okay? Sohei, I'm gonna put him in B tier. I'm not gonna put him crap tier, because with Shaman, I mean, if you compare these two characters, this character at least has some agency in team fights and has clutch potential on one-shotting, because you're not going to fight like top tier players who are going to react to your chain form as light attacks or your unblockable mix. You're going to be fighting like everybody, right? And you can farm one person and get all your souls, and then now you have a 20% damage buff on your tier 3, and you also have the ability to heal yourself all the way to full and be a stall god. So he does have some utility, and if he wasn't so clunky and he was able to get his souls a little bit more consistently or have more damage, I would probably put him in the A- tiers because he can be very good. Solid hitboxes on his zone attack and his chain zone attack with hyper armor. But it's clunky to play. A lot of people don't know how to use him. He does have chain form as light attacks, which is nice. His stall ability is okay, but his finishing potential for anti-ganking is pretty much non-existent. This character is not going to be anti-ganking that much, personally, because his damage is so bad. His finisher heavies deal no damage, and so he's kind of like stuck in between this really underrated middle ground, where if you have good reactions, good reads, and you can win your 1v1s and get souls or farms off souls from people who try to parry you, or just, you know, if you're a reaction god and you can parry and land those light attacks or heavy light attacks to get your souls, you should be very good. You should be able to, you know, pretty much kill so many enemies with your souls, because you can heal yourself, you can one-shot. I mean, this character potentially could be one of the best characters on paper, but incredibly hard to use and difficult and clunky to use. That's the problem. This character has some issues, and it's probably gonna get reworked in the future. We'll wait and see. Hitokiri, I'm gonna still put her S tier. She did get her hitboxes nerfed on her chain heavies, but I haven't noticed too much of a difference. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, she still is a brain rot character. You can just pick her up and play and win all your games and get to the MMR where I am at, and you'll still beat me too, because if you're not pairing those chain heavies, if you're variable timed and switching them up and trying to heavy feint to guard break, I'm basically screwed. And kick mix up, if you're not reacting to the animation, if you're not react hard, then you are screwed as well. If she does whiff it though, you did get a guard break, which is nice. But Hitokiri is still a menace, and even with the nerfs on nerfing the hitboxes of her chain heavies, it still tracks like a mother fudger. There is no way that you're getting away from her still. She still is exceptional in 1v2ing, anti-ganking stalling, target swapping those chain heavies. A lot of people aren't still going to be pairing it. They're still ridiculously good. Great hitboxes, good damage values, hyper armor. What more can I say? Unga bunga, throw heavy, and you win. This character is the one button character, all right? The one heavy character. One punch man, basically, except with an axe, and you just press your axe to hit their face. So, I mean, just absolutely ridiculous character. Super fun, though. I'm not gonna lie to you. Super duper fun. I don't blame people for playing Hitokiri, honestly. Especially when you have to fight against Orochis 24/7. But I think the Orochi meta is going to die down a little bit. Moving on to the Kensei here. Kensei is still fairly underrated as well. Decent, you know, I've said it time and time again, decent kit overall, fairly underrated. Good range, good peel, good dodge attack, really good strong wall punish, 34 damage wall punishes. And there's not much to say about Kensei, you know, it's just a really good vanguard, great starting vanguard to learn the game, and has good damage values with finisher hyper armor, good zone, 360 zone, and just solid character overall. Fun to play. He's a character you play to challenge yourself, because all the characters up here is so much easier to play than him, and so he requires a little bit of thought and prowess to play. So if you're just light spamming with him, you're gonna get parried, you're gonna lose all your games. But if they start being parry happy, you can just let some raw heavies fly, and it's super satisfying to land them. Kyoshin, where am I gonna put Kyoshin? Kyoshin, I'm gonna put him in the A tiers. Probably one of the most brand new characters too, of course, because the full block is so strong, and it also feeds no revenge. The Fujin cuts, which is the follow-up 3 light attacks, they feed like no revenge whatsoever. So you have plenty of opportunities to catch people off guard with those while they're in the middle of their move, or in an easy gank setup, because as soon as you see someone counter guard break, it's a free Kaze stance light attack, unblockable, heavy attack if you want, if you think you have enough time, but the Kaze stance light attack, easily catch them, and then your teammate gets to land a full heavy. If you know the gank, you know the gank. If you don't know it, you don't know it. It's no big deal, but it doesn't matter because you just hold full block, and the threat of him just being there, you can't even attack. It's just so scary. So it's very hard to go into 1v2 and win against that. It really depends on your hero pick. If you're picking one of these S tier characters, you should be fine. Picking one of these lower tier characters is going to be much, much harder to deal with. So Fujin cuts, the full block simulator, you know, it's super fun to play, great animations, but, you know, just absolutely aids to play against. And, you know, he's super strong, man. Just tier 2 also has arrow strike too, 45 damage, so ridiculously good. Tier 1 gives you healing, and tier 1 gives you bleed damage, which makes your Fujin cuts deal a crap ton of damage, and it's ridiculously strong. Moving on to Nobushi. Now, Nobushi, I'm going to put her in the A tiers as well. This character is super freaking strong with Way of the Shark. Deals so much more damage than she should. She also bleeds through revenge shields or just shields in general, so that right there is already one of the defining factors for this character. Absolutely aids to deal with. Really good iframes, huge amounts of range on her heavies and her light attacks. She can definitely just poke you out if you're not paying attention. If you're paying attention and you're blocking this character and you're reacting to her chain kick, which is only 566 MS, you should be fine against her. But if you're not, if you want to get some plays, if you are not focused 100%, this character will absolutely take away all your life, and she'll also get that alimony check that she's been asking for. Because if you do not pay attention, you're gonna eat a freaking 35 damage, finish her heavy, and you're gonna get bled up by all of her light attacks, and it's not gonna be a fun time for you. I can guarantee you that much. It's not gonna be a fun time. So her kicking also walls flat too, so it's also really scary against a wall. So Nobushi, super scary against someone who's not reacting to you, but if you're using her against like your reactards, or in a 1v2 situation, even against like casuals, I feel like it's very hard to win anti-ganks with her consistently because her offense is so ass. So she has no good offense, no finishing power, because what you want to do is just, the most realistic thing is you just want to stand there and block. That's what you should be doing, Nobushi. But she has really good damage, really good feats, and a great mid lane clear. Not the best anti-ganker, but an okay staller in my opinion. Now move on to Orochi. Orochi's still gonna be S tier, guys. The only thing they nerfed about Orochi is that his side storm rush moves on his left and right one, they're not going to be undodgeable anymore, but the top one still is. So the mix-up still exists. The kick into mix-up on the storm rush still doesn't exist. The only realistic nerf to this character was that if you're expecting the undodgeable, now you can just parry the top one. And if he's throwing out the side and right ones, it doesn't really make sense for him to do that unless there's a huge tech that I don't know about right now currently. But I haven't seen that much Orochis since the nerf. Thank God. They're gonna drop that character. Thank God. You freaking bozos out there. You're gonna drop the character. You guys aren't comp anymore. Okay, you're not comp anymore. And he's gonna be a lot easier to fight against. The character's pressure still exists though. It's the 50-50 mix on his kick and his undodgeable mix. He still has the undodgeable. Insane for team fights and ganking. His team fighting pressure still exudes all the way around because his heavies have amazing tracking, deal lots of damage. He still has dodge cancel recoveries. He does not have the enhanced recovery though on his enhanced light attack anymore on the dodge attack. But it doesn't really matter because he's a strong ganker and just an overall strong character, you know? Orochi hasn't really been affected too much by this. You know, he's not like, he used to be up here, now he's down here, okay? And we haven't organized this according to power level yet, and I'll organize it at the end of the video. So moving on to Shao, oh, we still have Aramusha here, actually. Let's move on to Aramusha. Aramusha, I'm putting the A- tier. Definitely power creep. You know, his full block is still cool, does for 14 damage against 360 degree, or you can do the top one, which is 20 damage. But with so much unblockable heavies from neutral or huge hitboxes with the unblockables, Aramusha just can't deal that much in team fights anymore. He has like pretty solid damage on his chain heavy attacks. They're infinite chains, so you can really wreck someone's shield and delay those and tar swap those. But otherwise, like Aramusha's Ring the Bell is just so mid compared to like everyone else's opener right now. They also gave him a small buff where you could tar swap your Ring the Bell, but in that moment, like you can get guard broken, you can get hit out of that. It's just a pointless buff to the character. It makes no sense why they actually added it and reworked it. In my opinion, I don't know why they even thought that was a good idea. Like maybe you should have just adjusted someone else's movement, perhaps. You know, maybe give Peacekeeper a follow-up bleed attack, perhaps. You know, or do something else, or just make Conqueror's 900 MS light attack go away. Just like delete that move. Like, that would be better than having Aramusha tar swap the bash, because that's not really what he needs. And so with the 4MS Deadly Feints, like, he just, it's a decent opener, but the thing is, a lot of people just dodge, and you have to cancel your heavy attack feint and go for GB and risk the dodge attack, but you can't let it fly, of course, and go for a full block cancel, which is nice. But Aramusha definitely just feels a little bit underrated, but he deals a lot of damage, so you kind of have to respect that about the character. Now, Shinobi S tier pick literally breaks the laws of For Honor. Probably one of the safest characters out there. I will say that this character, his skill floor is a little bit higher than all these other tier characters because he's a little bit harder to use in the beginning. But once you understand how he can be so strong in team fights, rotations, and option selecting, and the range that he has in ganks, in team fights, then you will understand why everyone hates him and why he's going to be getting a rework very, very soon. Like, if you were insane with him, he's going to be, like, all the way up here, dude. Like, he's literally up here. One of the most ridiculous characters out there. Insane range, insane ganks. Sickle Rain is really good. The undodgeable mix and the chain kick mix-up, super freaking strong. I don't know what more to say about it besides shuriken, shotgun, blasting people for 80 damage. I don't know how many times this happened to me. Every time you use it, you will get hit by this at least 40 damage. At least 40 damage. And it is a fast cooldown, immense range, and literally no startup. It's so freaking good. Even if you dodge the shurikens, if you have the reactions for it, which I do, you will get hit by the kick mix-up afterwards. So if you dodge shurikens, he does a forward dodge into kick. There's no way to evade it. There's no way to evade it. It's ridiculous. The only thing you could do, potentially, is dodge attack. But if you dodge attack and he does shurikens, he has time to parry you. So if you do dodge attack, you're fucked. I think he has time to parry you, I believe. But, like, it's just so ridiculous. This character is actually AIDS. Like, he's so fun to play. Like, I love playing him. I have, like, 50 reps on this character. But I know how oppressive he is. Now, moving on to Shugoki. Shugoki's also a fairly oppressive character, too. Like, ridiculously strong in that regard. With the forward dodge bash, you can't dodge attack. You can dodge attack, but you're going to hit by a trade. And if you don't do anything afterwards, because you expect him to do a... expect him to throw a heavy, he can just fake the heavy and go for guard break to land a throw punish on you, which is kind of crazy, you know, because he gets you on your recoveries. So that character's kind of busted in that regard. Headbutt does direct damage. I mean, there's not much I have to say about Shugoki. You just throw heavies. It's a variable timed heavies. The hug is super good for ganks and really good for getting your health back. Huge health swing potential. Shugoki is absolutely a monster when it comes to, you know, just 1v1 potential and team fights. His stalling is pretty good too, honestly, because the side dodge bashes have huge amounts of iframes, just like lawbringers. Shaolin, S tier character. I mean, there's not much to say about Shaolin. Top light is enhanced. He's tier 3, will heal everybody. His 50-50 mix is insane. The undodgeable pressure, and especially with the undodgeable tech, or his cheese stance tech that everyone's been using lately, pretty much unreactable. It's the animation is just so wonky that you have no idea what he's gonna do. But I feel like the character itself is gonna be fairly oppressive to any of the characters down here. If you pick a character down here, it'll be kind of hard to fight Shaolin. Shaolin is super strong in 1v1s and team fights. Just a great team fighter, amazing anti-ganker as well. Like, really good anti-ganking prowess. Great deflex, go into cheese stance, and stall for days on a point. Man, this guy has it all. Blink to teleport. I mean, Blink itself is overpowered because you can't dodge this move. Free 14 damage into chain mix-up. Teleport to help your teammates if you die and go to spawn. So, I mean, Shaolin is just ridiculous. Super fun to play, but also egregious. Probably needs some nerfs in the future. Moving on to the Wulin. The Wulin, Zhanhu, he's also going to be a fairly underrated character, a lot more balanced. Probably needs some adjustments in the future. But with 600 MS zone attack, super scary to use against Varangian, any of the full block characters, and hyper armor characters in general. So you don't really want to use that too much. You also be applying a lot of tags, unblockable on the 600 MS. Finisher light is absolutely terrible. I parry this like 90% of the time. Not a good move to use. You should probably use like maybe once in a match. That's what I do at least. Once in a match, and then he's a fairly straightforward character. He has dodge recoveries, dodge cancel recoveries that not as good as orochis. And his only real opener is his dodge attacks that are 4MS light attacks that come from both sides. But in team fights, you're gonna get easily parried 24/7 because they're just gonna they're just gonna external you, and you're gonna get free lay parries for 27 damage. So this character's pretty mid. He has a pretty good feats though. Quinlan Rose with the kunai does a crap ton of damage. Takes like freaking 80 HP. It's kind of crazy. And then of course he has Lombo, and then Last Laugh, which is absolutely OP as well. Jane June moving out all the way up to the S tier carry characters. This character is absolutely redonkulous. Huge hitboxes, great CV stance, get your stamina back. There's not too much to say about Jane June, honestly. I mean, this character absolutely has a lot of utility with the shin kick, with the team fights, huge hitboxes. You have to respect everything he does. His light whiff into unblockable mix. It's just the indicator game for this character, and the unblockable zone from his Sifu stance. You can't underestimate him. You have to respect it. You have to respect it in team fights, and even in 2v1 situations, because it's very hard. It can be hard to guard break him if he just lets it fly. So you have to kind of bait it out and hope to God that he's targeting you. So this character absolutely is really, really good. And the soft vein heavies, the wall splats on Sifu choke, oof. My gosh, heavy parry, CP choke, 27 damage. Your teammates can act as a wall too. And he's great feats. Inspire, the tier 1 against all odds, more damage if there's more enemies around you, phalanx. So much good stuff for this character. This character is all around amazing. You can carry with him. You can 1v1 anti-gank, 1v2, 1v3, all that good stuff. Tiandi, however, on the other hand, is also going to be in the A- tier, fairly underrated. The mix-up of this character, like I said before in my previous videos, not as strong as Orochi's. They basically have the same mix-ups, but Tiandi's is just not as strong. He's an okay duelist, but his damage is lackluster. He doesn't have as much strong chain pressure. He has to play a little bit more reactively. He is a pretty decent staller, though, a really good staller. And that's the entire point of this character. You want to get your tier 3 or tier 4 and then try to stall on a point as long as possible so your teammates can gather points for the mid lane and their home point, all that good stuff. And afterwards, you just form as chain lights. The kick mix up, which is feightable, the undodgeable mix. You know, the Tiandi as a character is fairly balanced. It's actually, I'd say it's really balanced in my opinion, in comparison to the S tiers. But he's just, you know, he's just power crept, overshadowed by so many other characters. Moving on to the last character, Nusha. I'm gonna put her B tier. She can be a good character. I think if you're having like a decent reaction day and you're baiting stuff out and you are paying attention to what the enemy is doing, like if they're trying to parry all your heavy attacks, that's when you can start letting heavies fly or heavy into GB. And then they'll be like, oh god, the traps are working. What should I do? Should I just do a random light attack or should I just dodge attack? That's when Nusha is actually really, really good because now you're a threat. Now they know that they can't just parry you. And they have to do like a bunch of other random option selects. And that's when it's your time to shine. You can dodge the side dodge bashes. You can parry the light attacks. That's a little bit tricky though, so you have to be wary of that. If they start light checking you on heavies, you gotta be really careful about that because heavy into feinting to get some nice plays on deflects or parries, you have to be ready for that. Or you can just let all those heavies fly. But then again, sometimes your heavies won't track people's dodge attacks, so you have to kind of respect that. But Nusha can be very frustrating to play. Probably one of the most frustrating characters to play ever. But I've been really enjoying her as one of the last Nusha mains out there. I truly do like playing her because she can have some solid offense and fuck people shit up, man. She can fuck people shit up. I'm not gonna lie to you. She's incredibly satisfying to play when she does work, but absolutely mind-numbingly boring when she doesn't work at all. So it really depends on how good your reactions are that game. If you have crap reactions, if you're fighting against Pirate, fighting against all the S tiers, she feels horrible to play. But any of the A tiers and below, she's fine. She does her job well. And you can get some really crazy pseudo mix-ups with her. She is ridiculously good. You can get, after a light parry, you can do a zone trap mix-up, or just a zone. After a heavy parry, you can just do a trap mix-up, and then once you start doing that, conditioning them, they're going to change their guard, and you can just let a raw heavy fly. So a heavy parry nets to 24 damage and 26 damage because of Deadly Duet. Deadly Duet is actually super OP, one of her best feats and the best feats in the game, in my opinion, because 1v1, if you finish someone off, you deal so much damage on those finisher heavies, wall splats, and you do so much damage on her heavy attacks, even her chain light attacks, because she also has form as chain light attacks. So like, definitely underrated. If you want a skill check character and a high skill floor character, Nusha is your girl, honestly. She is going to wreck some shit. This character should not be underestimated, especially against a good player. If you get good reactions and you play her, you're gonna dominate. You're actually gonna dominate. But that's pretty much my tier list. Oh wait, let's go ahead and adjust the values here. See what character is gonna be the top tier. So I'm gonna put Varangian up here. Pirate's gonna go. Honestly, I think Pirate is better in matchmaking than Varangian because for me personally, and maybe it's because I play more Pirate and I understand what she does, but she has mobility, more flexibility than Varangian. Varangian is good because she can stop people from attacking, but Pirate is good too because she just avoids everyone's attack, you know? So these two are probably the same, in my opinion, but Pirate, I feel like she's a little bit stronger and more fun, but I think that's subjective. I think objectively, Varangian is the strongest character, 100%. So let's move on. Afeera is going to be next. She's freaking AIDS. I'm going to put hitokiri next as well. Hitokiri is still AIDS. Ocelotl got nerfed. He's still strong, but I don't know if I would put him next to Hitokiri though, honestly. I'm gonna put Shaolin up here. Jane June's gonna go up here as well. I'm gonna put Celtic Curse God, Highlander right here. I'm gonna put Orochi right here because Orochi still has a really strong mix-up, still has really strong ganking tools. Nothing about his kit really got changed. It's just that you have to aim for the top now, so it's not that big of a deal. So it's gonna stay relatively the same. Highlander's really good hyper armor. I'm gonna put Shinobi last because, like I said before, of his higher skill floor entries. So you have to be kind of decent at the game or understand his mix-ups before you can actually utilize everything about the kit. Moving on over here, we're gonna put Gryphon first. Gryphon is absolutely super close to like S tier. Then move to Shugoki afterwards because Shugoki is ridiculously strong when it comes to his chain pressure and variable timed heavy. Same thing for Centurion. Great pressure, variable timed heavies. We're gonna go and put Berzerker here and then Warmonger here next. These two characters are absolutely will dominate your games and can no-brain for sure. Nobushi, I want to put Nobushi up here, right here. I'm gonna put actually Kyoshin first because Nobushi can be a lot harder to use, especially against a full block character and all these other casts right here. I'm gonna put Warlord last, and I think I might put. I'm gonna put lawbringer up here. He's very high A tier in my opinion. Very, very high. You cannot underestimate him. Stronger than Berzerker, stronger than all these characters here. Really strong chain pressure, really good hitboxes too. And I think that should be good here. Yep, that should be good. Now we're gonna put. I think I'm gonna put Raider first. I think Raider's stronger than jormangundr. Has a lot more chain pressure and more team fight capabilities with his stampede charge. Kensei is gonna go up here, still stronger. Aramusha. I'm gonna keep like these characters down here. Honestly, I feel like Gladiator might even be better than Aramusha sometimes, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. These characters, I'm gonna put Aramusha like lower. I might put Aramusha lower, dude. He might be the lowest A- tier character we have because I feel like Peacekeeper might even be better than him. But these characters are kind of interchangeable. Peacekeeper definitely is the worst if you don't have the god tier reactions for it. But Aramusha, I've seen like worse. I don't know. This is kind of hard to choose, honestly. I might just put like these two characters right here. Like Peacekeeper would be up here if you got the reactions for it. I would put her up here for me personally, but in the average lobby that I'm in, I think Peacekeeper has more relevancy here at the A- tiers. You guys have to let me know what you guys think of that. Conqueror, Sohei, this character here. That's about it. So that's my tier list. What do you guys think of it? Did you guys agree with me or not? Any of the solo queue enjoyers or duo queue enjoyers, what do you guys think about this? Every time I see these characters up here, I'm like, oh god, I gotta sit upright. Wipe my nose, take off my shirt because it's gonna get hot and sweaty in here, you know? All these characters up here, and maybe some of these characters here. But like these characters, I feel like they're a lot more fun to fight against than these ones up here, all right? Honestly, because these ones have insane ganks, insane tools, defensive tools to negate any of your offense, and they can just like dance around the battlefield, and there's nothing you can really do about it. Whereas these characters right here, they're a lot more, you know, you can touch them. You can actually touch them. So what do you guys think? Thank you guys for watching the tier list, and we'll probably have another tier list soon because hopefully Ubisoft will balance the game in like the next couple of weeks or so, and then I can make a new tier list that's a little bit more, has a little bit more finesse to it, right? A little bit more finesse. So hope you guys enjoyed the video today. Let me know your thoughts below on what you guys have been feeling about For Honor lately and what do we need to nerf. I feel like there's some buffs we need to do as well, and there's also some nerfs we still need to do on the top tiers, especially Pirate, Varangian, afeera, and well, just hitokiri. I think Ocelotl in a good spot right now, and he's a strong character just because he's strong, which is a good thing. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are down below. Thank you guys so much. Bye-bye. See you later.